Welcome to Lesson 7.12, Understanding the Digital Forensic Process. In your Candidate Information Bulletin, we are in the Security Operations domain. We are in Key Area of Knowledge A, which is Understand and Support Investigations, and B, which is Understand Requirements for Investigation Types. Our topics are going to include disk acquisition, write blockers, hashing, file recovery, slack space, stenography, steg analysis, metadata, pseudo-metadata, e-discovery, and the Federal Rules of Civil Procedures. Security operations personnel are not expected to be forensic specialists, but they should be familiar with the terminology and basic operation. Forensic work is complex and should be conducted only by trained investigators and by digital forensics professionals. Security operations and IT personnel should be knowledgeable, though, about evidence handling so that evidence is not unintentionally destroyed and so they can assist in the investigations. Forensic operations require an investment in specialized hardware tools and software applications. So data acquisition refers to obtaining a forensically sound copy of the evidence. Now, this copy could be an image or it could be a clone. This is our first phase of the investigation. We've collected evidence, and now we want to make a forensically sound copy of the evidence. A bitstream image is a bit-by-bit copy of the source material that preserves all the latent data in addition to the files and directory structure. Creating an image file requires specialized software. Accessing an image does not modify its data. So I want to emphasize that. So during the analysis process, all of the data remains intact. A clone is an exact copy of an entire hard drive, including all active and residual data and unallocated or slack space. A cloned hard drive can be installed into a computer, and the computer will reboot and function as if the original drive were still installed. So we have a bitstream image, which is a bit-by-bit copy, and we have a clone, which is an exact copy of the entire physical hard drive, which includes the active and residual, unallocated, and slack space. Now, a tenet of forensic examination is that original evidence must not be modified. So a hard drive write blocker tool intercepts inadvertent drive writes. Write block rules can either be set to allow all commands except those explicitly specified, or deny all write commands and allow all other commands. Hashing functions are used to verify that a file or drive has not been modified. That's integrity. So a forensic investigator will use a hash to compare the original evidence with the image. Now, just as a reminder, a hash function creates a one-way, fixed-length representation of the source. And if a file or drive has not been modified, the fingerprint should always be the same. The hashing algorithms include MD5 and the SHA family. Now, sometimes on the drive, there's going to be files that need to be recovered. Unallocated free drive space consists of logical clusters that are not currently allocated to a file. This can include clusters that have never been used or clusters that contain deleted files. When a file is deleted, the unallocated space it was using becomes unallocated. And until a new file is written, the old file actually remains intact and recoverable. So carving is the process by which deleted files or file fragments are recovered. Now, a disk space is divided into fixed-length blocks called clusters, and we just referred to clusters in the previous slide. When a file is written, it always starts at the beginning of a cluster, and it uses as many clusters as necessary. But rarely do file sizes and cluster size match. The space between the end of the file and the end of the last cluster is known as slack space. So if, for example, a cluster is 512 bytes and the file is only 500 bytes, those last 12 bytes would be known as slack space. Because slack space potentially contains data dumped randomly from the computer's memory, it's possible to identify network login names, passwords, and other sensitive information associated with computer usage. File slack can also be analyzed to identify prior uses of the subject computer, and such legacy data can help the computer forensic investigator. File slack is not a trivial item. On a large hard drive, file slack can involve several hundred megabytes of data. Fragments of prior email messages and word processing documents can be found in file slack. From a computer forensic standpoint, file slack is as important as the data that's still written to the drive. Digital stenography is the practice of concealing a file within another file. Watermarking is a hidden message that's used to prove or claim ownership, generally intellectual property or an artistic work. And hidden binary files are most often found embedded in image and audio files. Steganalysis is the detection of stenography by a third party, such as our digital forensic investigator. The techniques used mirror those of cryptanalysis. Steganalysis techniques, like cryptanalysis, are classified by how much information is known. We can have steganography only, which just the steganography medium is the only item available for analysis. We can have known carrier, where both the carrier and the media are both available for analysis. We can have known message, where the hidden message is known. And we can have chosen steganography, where the steganography medium and the algorithm are both known. And lastly, chosen message, which is a known message, and the steganography algorithm are used to create steganography media for future analysis and comparison. You don't need to know the detail of these, but just recall that steganalysis techniques mirror our cryptanalysis techniques. Now, one of the things our forensic investigator will be looking for is metadata. And metadata is data about data. And in a forensic investigation, two types of metadata are useful. File system metadata is created by the operating system, and it includes file attributes and security permissions. So attributes could include a file size, location, creation date, date of last access, date of last write, and whether a file is hidden, compressed, or archived. Application metadata is created by a specific application and may include title, author, subject, keywords, creation and modification dates, time in use, revision history. And audio and video files also have metadata, but those are related to their specific formats. So in addition to the files that are available, the files that have been recovered, and the metadata, all of this can be used in the digital investigation to both try to reconstruct activity and to construct a timeline. Pseudo-metadata is data that's created by the user and is hidden or embedded in a document. Pseudo-metadata can be found in comments, track changes, formulas, speaker notes, embedded graphics, and audio and video files. Again, this can be added to the group of information that we're using to build our investigation and do our analysis. Sometimes a digital forensic investigation is required because of litigation discovery. Discovery is the initial phase in litigation in which the parties in a dispute are required to provide each other relevant information and records, along with all other evidence related to the case. Electronic discovery, often referred to as e-discovery, is the process of identifying, collecting, and producing electronically stored information, known as ESI, in response to a lawsuit or an investigative request. So the ultimate goal of e-discovery is to produce evidence for litigation. Digital forensics encompasses the entire universe of data stored on a hard drive, but e-discovery usually focuses only on specific data or a specific data set, specific user, or specific activity. And just as a refresher, there are some federal rules of civil procedure that relate directly to e-discovery. FRCP 33 defines business records that are created or kept in electronic format as discoverable, given the requesting party access to them. FRCP Rule 37E creates a safe harbor from sanctions if you didn't preserve data and therefore no longer have electronic data that's requested provided certain conditions and circumstances are met. Now, just deleting a file does not meet that standard. If that file can be recovered, it can be used as evidence. And lastly, courts expect organizations to be ready for litigation, including being fluent in their IT and network architecture. So we have just covered a wide range of digital forensic techniques. We started with disk acquisition, which included both clones and images, write blockers, hashing to ensure that a file or drive hasn't changed, so we're ensuring the integrity, file recovery, stenography, steg analysis, metadata and pseudo-metadata, and e-discovery and the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. So that's going to bring us to our lesson 7.12, Match the Meaning. A lot of these terms may be new to you, so certainly feel free to go back through the lesson again. But let's try this. Let's see how you do. The terms I want to make sure that you are comfortable with are bitstream image, a clone, hash, carving, SLAC, steganography, pseudo-metadata, and e-discovery. So take the time you need, go ahead and match them up, put me on pause, come on back, and we'll go through them together. All right, let's go through our 7.12 terms. A bitstream image is an image where accessing does not modify the contents. A clone is an exact replica. A hash is a fixed-length representation. Carving is a process we use to recover deleted files. SLAC is a space at the end of a cluster, the unused space at the end of a cluster. Stenography is hidden files. That's when we hide a file within some other media. Pseudo-metadata is user-created hidden or embedded data. And e-discovery is producing ESI for litigation or investigation. I hope you did well with those, but if not, feel free to go right back through the lesson again. So let's end with our CISSP exam tips. First one is files deleted by an operating system are easily recoverable if they haven't been overwritten. The second is that SLAC space can contain very valuable information and contain information that's been dumped from memory or information of deleted files. And that metadata can be used to recreate a timeline of activity. Metadata, the data about the data, can be used to recreate a timeline of activity. So thanks for joining me for this lesson. I look forward to seeing you in the next.